Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prod Chattery 777. We've been having a great little series talking about Gentle Giant, very underrated band, quintessential 1970s UK progressive rock. And we've made it all the way up to 1977, I think it is, yes, with The Missing Piece. Gentle Giant, The Missing Piece. Generally regarded as the first of the, quote, sellout albums. Their previous album, Interview, didn't do quite as well as some of their previous albums. Freehand was quite a success. That album had a perfect blend of, intense Gentle Giant complexity and sophistication. The pinnacle of that, plus a really commercial sound. Interview, the album that followed it, was, they tried too hard to make a great Gentle Giant record, and it came out a bit disjointed and weird, although it's very good. So by the time they get to The Missing Piece, also they released a live album playing The Fool, which is really, really good. I'll talk about that another time. But by the time they get to The Missing Piece, they were starting to think, let's try and focus on success. Which is fair enough. They'd been touring, they'd been working hard for 7 years up to this point, and they found traces of success here and there, but they didn't get the recognition that I think they deserved, because what they did prior to this was absolutely fantastic. And there is a lot of good stuff that is still on here. This is not a sellout album, this is a transitional album. This is them slowly moving from one thing to another. And there are classic moments on here. I've actually always really liked this album, to be honest. But you really can't compare it to something like Octopus or In a Glass House or Acquiring the Taste or Freehand. I mean, it maybe a little bit of Freehand. I mean, you can compare some of the stuff on here to Freehand music, but this is the first time when they did abandon their famous statement on Acquiring the Taste. They were no longer seeking to push the boundaries of contemporary popular music. They were kind of content to try contemporary popular music, and they had already risked being very unpopular, and now they decided to risk being popular. And I think that was a far greater risk in the long run. But this is ultimately not a bad album. I think the other thing that was unique about this one is that some of the songs they played live before they recorded it. Before, they would always arrange everything. Carrie Minier would have all these charts, and so would Derek and Ray Shulman. They did a lot of the arranging as well, and basically they taught it to the other guys in the band, and they'd rehearse it and piece it together in the studio, and then figure out how to play it live. And often live they rearranged a lot of their material. Notably, I don't think I've mentioned yet, but on Octopus, again, very complex album with a lot of different musical things going on. Instead of just playing, bits and pieces of the album, they ended up just putting it into a single, about 20-minute medley, and all these little different bits of Octopus would come out, and it's brilliant. Yeah, it's a really, really good live thing to just put a compressed version of the whole album into a big medley. And again, when we do Playing the Fool one time, we'll talk more about that. We're talking about The Missing Piece right now, so let's take a look at side one. Now, it's an album of two sides. The first side shows the direction that they were going toward. The first side is seeking more commercial pop oriented direction, far less complex. Obviously, the instrumentation is greatly reduced by here. They're very much set in their roles, like Ray Shulman's the bass player, Derek's the singer, Carrie's the keyboardist, Gary's the guitar player, and John Weathers is the drums. They're not doing they're not playing a million instruments anymore. And the second side is the more traditional Gentle Giant stuff, although, like I said, the instrumentation is still reduced. But side one opens with 2 Weeks in Spain, which is actually something of a classic Gentle Giant song. I think it's kind of seen a resurgence in later years where the fans have actually said, you know what, that's pretty good. It's not a bad song. Really confusing downbeat. No one can agree what the downbeat is. Da 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 bum bum da 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 da. So it's still got that those quirky lines. It's less contrapuntal though. There's no multiple lines bouncing off of each other. But the actual riff is kind of typical Gentle Giant. And it has got a very simple structure. You get a verse and a chorus and a verse. It's got a nice little middle section though, middle 8, which is quite nice. Really tight drumming. The band is playing fantastically. They're just playing a different style of music, which isn't bad yet. This is still pretty good. I think 2 Weeks in Spain is actually a great little number. Peppy. It's a peppy number. Track 2 is I'm Turning Around. This is it's almost like a power ballad. And, there would have been a time when I would have listened to this and absolutely hated it. But I'm Turning Around is actually a very strong song. It doesn't seem like it's fully commercial yet. I mean, obviously it's not a typical Gentle Giant song. It is far more straight ahead and direct than what they'd done before. But it's a convincing ballad. It's well written, it's well arranged, well sung. Derek Shulman does a great vocal performance on it. I've got no problem with I'm Turning Around. The song titles are a little bit obvious because they're saying, look at us, we're not doing what we used to anymore. A little bit too self-referential maybe. That obviously stands true for the next track, I Betcha Thought We Couldn't Do It. Now the title probably bothers me more than the actual song. The song itself is, everyone says it's like a punk song, but I mean it's got a lot to do with kind of 50s rock and roll as well, which I think is very related to punk. That's a whole other topic. We'll talk about it one day maybe. But it's honestly not a terrible song. It's very simplistic, obviously. There's a really cool keyboard part in Betcha Thought We Couldn't Do It when Carey kind of does his little solo with the twinkly medieval sounds. Again, it still sounds typical Gentle Giant, even though the arrangement is nothing like what Gentle Giant would do. That keyboard sound that Carey uses in the solo for Betcha Thought We Couldn't Do It it's still super Gentle Giant. Then track 4 of side 1, we got Who Do You Think You Are? I really like this song. The main melody that Derek sings is almost like Happy birthday to you. Who do you think you are? It's kind of funny, but it does have that contrapuntal nature that some of the other Gentle Giant albums do. The guitar line is very jangly, and the bass riff kind of bounces back, and there's an interaction between the different musical lines that are happening. So it does. Who do you think you are still has that Gentle Giant sound. As a song, it's quite condensed. It's still got a nice middle 8 with some great atmospheric keyboard kind of bits. Obviously nowhere near complex as Just the Same, but I think it's actually a great song. Which is cool. Then we get Mountain Time, which is nothing like what Gentle Giant did done before. It's probably closer related to Simon Dupree and the Big Sound, which is where the Shulman brothers started out. It's kind of like a soul song. Really funky. It's got a real up-tempo kind of a feeling to it. I'm not sure who the singers are, but it sounds like they've got some soul singers in the background doing the oohs and the ahs. And Carey Manier's got some great da-dum, 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 da-dum. It's a really good song. Not typical Gentle Giant, but even the first side, which is probably the side that takes the most heat on this album, has got some great material on it. I still really, really like it. That concludes the first side. We flipped the album over. We got side 2, which is the typical Giant stuff. And we get As Old As You're Young. This is a Carey song, so Carey still got to sing, although Derek does the final verse. It's that kind of medieval stuff, not to the same extent as even I Lost My Head. The beginning of I Lost My Head is very intricate. This is intricate as well, but it's kind of that generic Gentle Giant stuff. It's got all those Gentle Giant trademarks, but As Old As You're Young may not fit as comfortably on in a glass house, for example. It would feel pretty drowned out by the other material. But I mean, especially in the context of this album, it might be my favorite song. It's a great little piece of Gentle Giant. I'd still consider it a classic Gentle Giant track, but it is of this era. It is a part of late 70s transitional era. yeah, great stuff. Great performance. Great vocals by both Carrie and Derek. Really like that song. I love the outro too. Da 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 da. Does it on the organ with the organ sound. Track 2 of side 2, Memories of Old Days. This is the big acoustic piece. Of course, they always had their big acoustic piece. It wasn't always a big piece. This is like a ballad, but it is quite long. It's 7 minutes. And again, an absolute classic piece of Gentle Giant music. The instrumentation, like I've been saying, is greatly reduced. I mean, it is basically, you know, a guitar ensemble, an acoustic guitar ensemble. There's some electric in there as well. Some nice organ chords that pop up here and there. It doesn't have any of the complex vocal arrangements. It's just a straight up lead vocal line from Derek Shulman. And that's notable. This is the first time where they actually were writing vocal melodies. It wasn't just like, oh, we need the voice to do something so it can take this piece of the puzzle. Like they are writing lead vocal lines at this point. Becoming closer to songwriters, I guess. But yeah, Memories of Old Days is really, really good. There's a great atmosphere to it. There's some great dynamics to it. It's got the emotional kick that a lot of the great Gentle Giant songs have. I rank, the first 2 songs on side 2 I rank up with, any of the classic stuff, but still a part of this era. And it shows that they were still totally capable of arranging these things. They've just been doing it for 7 years. So yeah, Memories of Old Days, one of the best on the album. Then we get to Winning. This is kind of got the percussion ensemble, and yeah, Winning almost reminds me of Timing from Interview. Of course, Timing has got the violin and it's got more instrumental diversity to it. Like Winning is almost kind of like it's like a punk version of Timing almost. It is kind of it's not punk, but it's guitar led rather than violin led. And there's some kind of weird, funny lines that go around, with the guitar and the bass. It's good. It's not as Winning isn't as good as the first 2 songs on the second side, but I don't like it enough to call it a classic Gentle Giant piece, but it's good. Like I said, it's got the percussion thing that they were so well known for. There's kind of 3 sections in the song where you get all the percussion bash, which is cool. And then that song kind of winds up, and we get For Nobody. Now, this is a really strong track on the album, and it's unique in that it's, like I said, As Old as You're Young and Memories of Old Days kind of do harken back to old Gentle Giant stuff, whereas For Nobody is very much, it's a direction they could have gone in. It's very heavy, it's very menacing, it's got talking about, this is closer to a punk song than Winning. It's got that punk energy, it's got that drive, it's a heavy rock song, still loaded with the unpredictable jangly rhythms that were so, notable with Gentle Giant. For Nobody is a really fresh thing, and I think if they probably kept on in that direction, that heavier, but still contrapuntal direction, I think they would have found a lot more success. And yeah, I almost wondered, like, For Nobody would have been a really good opener as well for this album. But again, they were trying to do that separate thing, separate the more commercially oriented songs with the classic songs. So there's side 1, side 2. I'm not as big a fan of albums that have that, 2-sided quality, but I mean, it works for this, and I think a lot of the songs on here are really, really, really good. It's definitely not classic Gentle Giant, but I would consider this essential too. Actually, this is just on the line of essential. They had compromised. It's the first time they actually compromised, but they're still informed enough by their past that they were able to put some of those interesting arrangements and complex things in there. It would be basically the last time they did that. The next album is the big sellout one. I try to be really, really nice, but it is the big sellout one. We are going to talk about it. It's called Giant for a Day. It's notorious, but we will talk about that next. That's it for The Missing Piece by Gentle Giant. We're almost to the end. Hope you enjoyed. Hit a like, hit a subscribe, and we will see you in the future. Take care.